Hello everybody, welcome to our presentation. My name is Jim Patterson from Tivitie. Joining me today is Michelle Manington, also from Tivitie, and we will be telling you more about our company later and our offerings towards the end of the presentation. Today our topic is time and financial integration with Project Online, and in it we'll provide an overview of both project financial management concepts and how Project Online can provide significant improvements in financial and project performance for your organization. Also, we will discuss how Tivitie's Project Connect integration platform and Project Financial Planner enhance Project Online in these areas. We'll also talk about some case study information, and we'll also demonstrate some of the solution in action for you. Before we get started, we have a few quick logistics to go over with you. First off, we will not open the line for questions. All lines are muted during the webinar. However, we will answer questions that are captured in the chat and question panel throughout today's presentation should you have any. You can also feel free to email us directly, and we're happy to answer any questions afterwards as well. We'll be providing our contact information towards the end of the presentation. Also, if for some reason you get distracted or pulled away during the webinar, no need to worry. We will be distributing the recording of today's presentation to all attendees and registrants following the webinar. So with that, let's get started with the presentation of time and financial integration in Project Online. In our last webinar regarding Tivitie's Project Financial Planner, we talked briefly about how in project and portfolio management, the financial or cost aspect of project management, or that dimension, really touches all the different dimensions or knowledge areas of project management. You highlighted here, without going over it again, it is an important part in successfully managing your projects to have the cost and financial piece under control. And in the financial management process, we talked about three key areas: one of cost estimation, one of establishing a budget by which we would manage to, and then exercising spending control during the life of the project to make sure that we bring it in as promised for the costs that we committed to. So these are areas, if you're just focused on the financial management process of things, that are important. And we covered this, and we have a recording for our last webinar of Project Financial Planner available to you on our website, and we'll show you a link to that later on. But if we take this more holistically and look at the entire set of constraints in project management, and look at the classic project management triangle, which really models those constraints, you're really looking at the dimensions of scope, time, and cost, with some dimension of quality interjected in there. And it's really used to illustrate that project management success is measured by the team's ability to manage the project on all these dimensions so that the expected results are produced while managing time and cost. We define time as the amount of time available to complete a project, cost as the budgeted amount available for the project, and scope is really what needs to be done or accomplished to the project's end result to be considered successful. These are often competing constraints, meaning that one side of the triangle can't be changed without affecting one or both of the others. A further refinement of this constraint model really separates product quality or performance from the scope and turns quality into a fourth constraint, meaning that's something that could give if there's changes in any one leg of that triangle. Ultimately, the message here is that a complete project management process or system should integrate all of these dimensions so that we can manage them all within a common solution and process framework. So let's talk about Microsoft Project Online and what it offers. At a high level, you look at these pillars of portfolio management, project management, resource management, and project collaboration. There are rich sets of features within the solution that allows you to handle these dimensions of project management. And if you look at this from a PPM Digital Workplace and having this provided to you through the cloud via the Office 365 platform from Microsoft, it provides an easy way for all organizations to access very robust capabilities that formerly only organizations with the financial strength to manage their own server farms and take care of the infrastructure for these things really had access to. But Project Online really is meant to be an end-to-end solution to cover all dimensions of that project management process. And it does include, as you can see, as I've highlighted here, the time reporting and the financial management aspects as well. But end to end, from demand and intake all the way through execution, all the way through tracking, and then all of the reporting around that ends up being a full set of capabilities that are available to you in the Microsoft PPM offering. If we look at this from a project portfolio management cycle, and starting at the top when you start collecting work demand, and then you prioritize a potential portfolio of projects from all that demand, and then you need to analyze the financial impact and analyze resource demand and impact and the implications there, selecting the projects and work, plan the project and work activities, collaborate during the execution piece of that, track the progress, track time and expenditures around those projects, then analyze where we're at on a cyclical basis to make any in-course corrections that we need, and then ultimately the cycle starts over and over again on whatever type of cadence that you're working on within that project management process. And Project Online really does help us manage all aspects of this within the end-to-end solution. So if you think about the higher level process aspects: collect, analyze, select, plan, track, analyze, and then start the process again. Now if we take this and we look at this from a time and financial integration perspective, these are components that need to be managed and sometimes enhanced depending on the nature of your internal business process to get the results that we're looking for. For example, in the analyze financial impact, some detailed budgeting and planning and estimation process may be needed at that early cycle to get projects approved, figure out what it is that we're going to need from a dollar perspective and from other types of resources, and figure out just what type of approval of funding might be needed in order to get this project going as part of that selection and identification process. Over on the left-hand side, during the tracking piece, you may need to collect time, meaning that the timesheets process and collecting actuals to figure out what we're really spending from a labor perspective as opposed to what we thought we were going to do up front needs to be dealt with in some shape or fashion in that regard. And then typically, when we look at where financials are really managed, up at the top we're looking at the financial system that comes into play. And oftentimes it is its own silo or its own island of information. And in a time and financially integrated solution, all of the components down below should be working in concert with what's going on in the financial system above. For example, time reporting information on your projects and other work may be captured in a timesheet. Now, there could be rates in the project management solution, like in Project Online, that'll give you some early indication of what that labor cost may be that you're incurring. But things like real rates and procured costs and purchase order commitments and invoices paid and such will probably reside up in the financial system. So when we're looking at tying that back to actuals in the budgeting and forecasting piece on the other side, to get what we might call actuals, the financial system generally has to come into play to get that. And we can either enter that if it's disconnected in that budgeting and forecasting cost management piece, or we can let that information flow from the financial system into that for comparison and managing our projects. We're going to talk a little bit about a few use cases today on how that would work, but the idea that these are components that can be managed within the Microsoft Project Online experience. So one of the things that's on board in Project Online is its own time reporting capability. Being able to track time on both project and non-project or absence or administrative time is a key capability of that, and be able to collect time phase actuals on where we're really actually spending our time so that we can then track those actuals and the related costs around those is something that is native and a core capability of Project Online. Also the ability to do approvals and have the ability for project and functional managers to approve that time to maintain some of that spend control and understand that these things are being charged to the right places and ensure that there's integrity in the data is all part of that process. Now, time reporting is a key piece of capturing labor costs and actual labor costs on what's really being expended. Yes, third-party or external timesheets are often in play in organizations, and that information could still be used in this scenario, as we'll talk about later, but there is no need for a third-party solution if you leverage the timesheet that is inherent in Project Online. And then if we capture this information on time-phased actuals against of our projects, we can start getting some very rich time management information. Reporting that's available in the connected Power BI solution that has an out-of-the-box connection to Project Online allows us to slice, dice, and visualize this time reporting information both from an hours and a cost perspective in a variety of different fashions. We have come up with a number of different reports and report packs that get people a jump start on this, but it's easy to configure your own reports and look at time and cost in a way that is appropriate for your particular organization. The key is this becomes a natural output of the process instead of some manual export, create charts in Excel type of process, which can be a project in and of itself every reporting cycle. If we do this properly, we get this information from the time reporting from our normal course of operations. And then on the financial management side of things, being able to enter in budgets down to the level of granularity of cost categories that make the most sense for you, and then be able to track actuals against those and even revise forecasts or potentially even track or project the benefits that are realized from the project that may be tracked to the business case you used to originally justify the project. And then some graphics or charting that summarize this information on what our planned versus actual expenditures are or revised forecasted planned expenditures may be. The idea is that once again, if we do this properly in a end-to-end system that has complete capabilities, this becomes a natural output of the system and not some disconnected piece that people have to marry up manually to provide reporting of all these different dimensions of project information. And really, the thing that really makes this work together with external systems like the financial systems is Tivitie's Project Connect. Tivitie's Project Connect is an integration platform that sits in the Microsoft cloud and works with Project Online to connect Project Online with a variety of other tools and systems. As you see here from different types of project work, it can allow you to connect with agile software development or product development projects using tools like Visual Studio or other third parties. You could look at professional services with CRM solutions like Salesforce or Dynamic CRM, IT service management solutions, or even just other task management or lighter weight project management solutions that give you the ability to do some lighter weight planning, can feed into that Project Connect and get that data interchanging with Project Online for an all work type of scenario. But down in the lower left, you'll see the financial management piece, and that's what we're going to focus on here today, is how do we get that information working together with Project Online in a seamless and effective basis. So if we look at the integration with financial systems and focus on this, it's really a matter of saying, what's the appropriate role and what's the right system of record for certain types of information? The domain of a financial or an ERP system is just that. It's the owner of that information. But if you have needs on the project management or portfolio management side of things in Project Online, how can we leverage that information while removing the need for manual intervention, downloading of information, hand keying or transcribing information, or manually generating reports and doing duplicate data entry that often happens in organizations today? Well, the answer to that is to provide some level of bidirectional integration that allows that information to be shared freely, meaning that it's entered once and used for multiple purposes across the project and portfolio management process, which includes the financial management aspects of things there. If we do that, we can also, through Power BI, which is integrated with Project Online seamlessly, is to provide a rich set of financial reporting that's based upon the information that's in the financial system, information that's collected through time reporting, and other related information that will help enhance that reporting and visualization from the rest of the data and rich data sets that are being generated in Project Online. So as we see here, some different charts, area diagrams, and other things that paint the picture that we need to see on what we planned and committed to from a budget perspective, what we're actually spending, and potentially where we're going or trending to see if we're going to finish on track or not, are pieces of information that are very helpful if we can get them on a timely basis while we still have an opportunity to correct course if correction is needed. And then we can look at things like costs against different projects and projected financial spends on different projects, and really all types of drill down information to whatever level of granularity makes sense for the type of analysis that you're going to be doing. Now, every organization has its own landscape and ecosystem of systems, from financial systems, project systems, and a variety of things they may be doing in spreadsheets and other homegrown systems. And the Project Online platform, in conjunction with Tivitie's Project Connect, really provides a flexible approach to meet the organization where they're at and add capabilities through Project Online that maybe don't exist today, but yet also leverage systems that are entrenched that need to stay in place, like the financial system, and leverage them to their maximum benefit in project execution and project management, and getting visibility into the entire portfolio. With that, I would like to turn the mic over to Michelle Manamton, who heads up our professional services organization, to talk about some of the use cases where these concepts have been put in place into some of our actual clients. Michelle?
Hi, Jim. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. Perfect. So for today, what I wanted to do was give you some common case studies or common use cases that we see from an industry perspective when we're going into organizations and trying to help them streamline this process. Some common challenges that we see from an IT PPM scenario is typically there are disparate systems for managing your projects from a PMO standpoint, managing your project financials from the financial standpoint, and then having a variety of different types of labor, for example, your external and internal labor that are tracking time and costs against these different projects. With the project financials aspect, there is a level of integrity that has to be maintained for the financial aspect, and that's not something to be taken lightly. So that's something that has to be incorporated into the solution as a whole. But a lot of times the project management office and the PMs within the project management office are not getting the granularity that they need in order to effectively manage their projects from a financial perspective. Even if it's not directly related to a dollar value, just related to an effort, you can see tremendous improvements in your project performance and have that visibility to adjust and increase performance over the projects as a whole. They also have some excessive overhead and maintenance costs for these systems. So I'll give you a couple of examples here. One example that we've been recently working with is an IT organization that has SAP internally, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and they're tracking their time in SAP. That information is at the work breakdown structure that makes sense for finance, but doesn't necessarily make sense for their IT PMO because they're looking to get more granular. In addition, it takes months, if not, it doesn't work for external contractors to actually get into the system and actually enter time, and this is, I'm speaking from personal experience here because we were a contractor for these resources, and so trying to get into the VPN system to enter time into SAP on a timely basis was just a nightmare. We've had the same experience with organizations that have a Clarity on-premise instance that we're trying to enter time in so that the project management office has visibility into the actuals that have been accrued and the time it takes for vendors to get onboarded and enter information and have the VPN access. It's been very cumbersome. And then we have an organization that actually has no visibility into that information at all, other than the vendors providing spreadsheets and invoices in a variety of different formats that they're having to consolidate and basically enter into their own project schedule manually. So these are some challenges that organizations are facing with these legacy systems that are on-premise, that are cumbersome, with a variety of different approaches to managing projects across the board. The other piece of the equation that we've seen consistently is the, from an IT perspective in particular, is the Agile team, the app dev team, working within a tool set such as Visual Studio, Team Services, TFS, or Jira, or something of that nature, and they're already entering time into that system, and they don't want to enter time into two different systems. So I've seen actually a roadblock that come up immediately from the app dev side of the house saying, we're not going to, don't implement Project Online because we don't want to enter our time twice. So having that Tivitie Connect that Jim mentioned and implementing an online Project Online solution with the integration with the financial system, with the integration with those other tool sets such as the AppDev, VSTS, or TFS, enables the tracking of time at the level of granularity that the PM is requiring while still maintaining that financial integrity that the finance team is requiring, and enabling internal and external resources to access the Project Online instance much easier because it is a cloud-based solution. And you've reduced all of the maintenance and overhead associated with all those legacy applications and all of the manual legwork that's happening in the background for generating reports that have financial information, having visibility into what's actually been spent on my project, and I see it 2 months later than I should, and I have no ability to actually make adjustments in time to correct those actions. So implementing the Project Online platform for these IT PPM organizations, and these are enterprise organizations, they've seen significant improvements. And I'm just going to give you some examples of how this has been set up for organizations and some best practices around that. So if you can go to the next slide, Jim. So this is an example of an organization that's basically taking a stage one, a step one. You've got your finance team that has their WBS that has to be maintained and have consistent integrity across the board from how the actuals are getting tracked against those entities. So in Project Online, you can set up different fields that can capture your project, your task, and resource level entities that can then be allocated to those different timesheet items that you're tracking on within the project schedule itself. So the PMO now has the ability to create their milestones, collaborate with their team, manage at the level that's meaningful to that project manager, share that information with finance, and integrate with an SAP or a Dynamics or an Oracle system. And what this is doing, this is the first example, which I do recommend as a phase one, is actually taking the information and doing the export out of Tivitie Connect and into, then doing an import into SAP. This is a great phase one because you can get a really fast, quick win without having to incorporate all of the rules that SAP or your financial system requires up front and risking the possibility of running into errors or issues with the financial system integration. So this gives you kind of a stage one, let's test this out, let's do the process. We're going to automate a good portion of this, and then we're going to refine. And then if we go to the next slide, Jim, you can now incorporate that as an automated integration because you've already ruled out all of the possibilities of errors and inconsistencies that may happen when you do that financial integration. And it accelerates that step too because you've already gone through that process, and this is more of an iterative approach to the integration from a platform standpoint. And then the last slide just shows you how you can incorporate the app dev team from a Visual Studio standpoint. So the app dev team, or anyone who's doing an agile type approach of managing projects, can manage at the level of granularity that they are used to managing, which is really that task level associated to perhaps a user story associated to a feature. And they can capture their daily activities at that level and capture the actual time spent, their remaining effort that's associated to that. And that information is then fed into the project schedule for the PMO, who maybe has a hybrid approach or just needs visibility into a pure agile project. And that information, again, is now incorporated into the overarching requirements from a financial standpoint because it inherits those WBS entities that are required and usually is at the expense level. And you can put automated logic in there for cap expense and that type of thing so that the thought process that goes into managing that financial integrity is not pushed onto the end user or even the project manager. It's really inherently captured in the background based off of business rules and logic that is associated to the integration itself. And then the next scenario is really more that perhaps a defense contractor, we work with several of those agencies that are looking to capture cost schedule integration because they've got various methods of managing their project schedules across the board. Defense contractors, I'm just known for going in and seeing a ton of legacy homegrown systems that have been built in order to meet requirements that are requiring this excessive overhead and maintenance for maintaining these systems. And then again, that lengthy status period, which basically just takes away that ability to be proactive in managing these different programs, which really just results in these inefficiencies of staff working in multiple systems, disconnected manual processes, and lack of visibility that they're looking to achieve from an overall project or program performance standpoint. So we've been able to, this is really more the scenario where you're not going to replace the timesheets because the timesheets are perhaps, you know, it's a line of business system that you're not going to be able to basically displace with a project online solution. But you still want visibility into the actuals, and you still want to be able to push plan and progress into the system that's generating program performance metrics such as earned value. So this scenario is more along the lines of having project online where you can standardize and centralize your master schedules or your projects, leverage Tivitie Connect to incorporate that cost schedule integration need to report on those earned value metrics and have a consistent and streamlined method for reporting on that information. We also see a lot of agile within these organizations. So again, that connect with TFS or VSTS or Jira is very common in these scenarios as well, and promoting the ability to have various tool sets and various levels of management, whether you're a master scheduler or program manager, whether you're an engineer or a lead engineer or CAM, or you're a team member or engineer working on the items itself, providing that level of flexibility. And then obviously incorporating all of that information into one centralized reporting database that you can report on now from a dashboard and visualization perspective that Jim showed earlier. Now, one other scenario that we have seen for organizations that perhaps may not have an earned value management tool set, we can leverage the financial planner to generate earned value metrics as well. So as you capture that time phase plan, that time phase actual, and your time phase progress, the financial planner can actually help you report on earned value as well as allowing you to enter that information in or integrate with other financial systems. So that's another scenario for those organizations that are maybe a little bit less reliant on the SAPs or the Deltecs or the Oracles for their earned value management. So the benefits here really is this allows you to have that enterprise level standardization for managing your schedules and your projects, enterprise reporting across all of these projects, and basically improved execution on all of these programs because you've reduced all of this wasted time that's done for manual integrations and reporting, and you've been able to leverage a standard approach to managing across projects and programs so that as you incorporate new staff or people are being applied across multiple programs or projects, they're not having to learn a new way of doing things for each time they're associated to a new entity. So for this slide, Jim, this will just give you a quick overview of how the cost schedule integration could occur in this scenario. Obviously, each organization is unique, but this is just a very basic way that you could easily connect your cost and schedule by incorporating your plan with your BCWS, your progress with your BCWP, and then pushing that information into SAP or an Oracle or a Deltek for your line of business integration with your actuals. And then that would basically generate your earned value metrics. And by having that unique charge code that's associated and maybe some data transformation that occurs within that Tivitie Connect platform, that streamlines this process and takes some of the requirements and heavy lifting from the scheduling team or the project management team that is managing the project. And maybe a lot of times I've seen they have to create their schedule and manage their schedule in a way that will speak to financials in the financial language, which doesn't necessarily translate to the schedulers or the project managers language. So by having that Connect platform in the middle that does that translation of the data, that can allow the teams, again, to work in a way that's meaningful to them, but still maintains that integrity that the financial team needs from the financial standpoint. So this is just another example of how you could leverage Tivitie Connect for a cost schedule integration standpoint.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. These are just a couple of examples of a myriad of things that the flexibility of Tivitie's Project Connect and Financial Planner bring to the mix in conjunction with Project Online. We have a number of different scenarios and different variations based on process and workflow and the way finances get input, approved, and tracked within different organizations. So definitely if you have a use case that varies from what you've seen today, don't hesitate to talk to us about ways that we might be able to implement and dovetail with and enhance what you're already doing. So let me go into a little bit of the solution. Project Online really gives you that capability to manage the central repository or portfolio of projects wherever they are in their life cycle. Here we're seeing a view of projects that are maybe requested and not yet approved, ones that are approved and not yet being executed, and a bunch of projects here that are in progress. And metrics in here, including cost health, are things that are being tracked within here. One of the things that we add to the mix here, beyond just the onboarding of the onboard timesheets, is the ability to do some of the things that we talked about here today. For example, our Project Financial Planner allows you to build a detailed cost plan for a project wherever it is in the life cycle, whether it's justifying the project or tracking it along the way. So by selecting a project in Project Online and opening up the cost planner, it allows us to basically go in and start building out detailed cost plans and tracking them at a level of detail that makes the most sense for you. For example, in this particular view for this project, notice that we have a number of different detailed cost categories, and these would be the cost categories that you would define for your organization. Also notice that we're tracking capital versus operational expense, CapEx versus OpEx. And notice from a cost type perspective, not a cost category, but a cost type perspective, we could track budget, actuals, revised forecasts, and even track prospective or actual benefits that we're getting across these different cost categories as we go on through. What's nice about this is you can define as many different cost types, as we call them, along the way. We can do these things on a period basis to get the view or the horizon that we'd like to have. And then we can very easily change the way we look at this. So for example, if we'd like this not only just grouped and summarized by project, but say maybe grouped by expense type, I can just basically drag and drop and start seeing all my capital versus expense and seeing that summarized in a way that makes sense in the way we do that. And we can do flexible things on the way we'd actually see maybe just the budget. Maybe we don't want to see the benefits in here at this point, etc. And the idea is it's a very flexible way to get a lot of detail, a lot of time-phased information. And I think one of the things about the Tivitie Project Connect with the actuals is that these actual values can be entered directly in here, but in a more mature and fully functional process, we could grab that information from your financial system and put what I was calling earlier actuals in here. So you may even have things that validate and track exactly to what's in the financial system if that integration is fully complete in kind of that phase 2 type of dynamic integration that Michelle talked about earlier on. The key here is this is good for planning and justifying the projects and establishing budgets and forecasts, and then tracking the actual information as we go on through. Once again, this can be configured to track to your cost categories, etc., but it's a very rich capability to do detailed budgeting and tracking right within Project Online. Another aspect that we talked about was time reporting. There is a onboard timesheet capability right within Project Online. So without having to do anything other than plan your projects and assign people to work, they can come in and start reporting time on a time phase, time period basis against either the project level or the task level of information, whatever is required by the organization, and enter those things in a timesheet grid as you go on through. You can even track non-project, administrative, or absence time in here. And the key here is that it's an easy way in a centralized place to report time against all your work and not necessarily have to go to a third-party system to do that. That being said, if a third-party system is in place and is not going anywhere, the information that you would ordinarily enter in here could be garnered or put into here or leveraged in here via Tivitie Project Connect to grab that information that's being reported on a time phase basis elsewhere, but leverage it for project visibility against your planned information. Since timesheet systems typically only track actuals, to get it in here to compare with your plan and versus your actual gives you some power in tracking on progress and overall health of the project as you move on through. You can even do things in here like do a combination of reporting time. You can report time along with progress. So for example, if you want to track time or actual effort spent, but also track percent completes and other date-driven types of things in here, you can actually update the tasks that have been assigned to you in here to make that happen. And regardless of how you actually update your time or your tasks, you can actually establish and configure the approval process so that your managers can, both from a project management and a functional management perspective, can go in here and approve the time that's required so that we have some validation and some integrity to the data that moves on through from an actual perspective. And you can even delineate this into billable versus non-billable time if you're a billable type of organization, or even if you're doing internal chargebacks within your organization. The other key piece here in making this work is if we tie this all together, you can actually use Power BI, which has a out-of-the-box connector to Project Online. Power BI is included, the free version of it, with Office 365 for the customers that are in Office 365, and you can actually view Power BI reports with that free version or included version of the product. There is a paid version that you could use to do more authoring of reports and creation of reports, but the idea here is that most of the organization is consumers of this type of information. And as we look at the types of costs and information that come from either your financial system, from data that's within the financial planner, or in the project costs that are planned out in Microsoft Project, we can start looking at things like charts about plan versus actual costs and how they're tracking versus the benefits we're looking at achieving. Some totals or summarizations of the total data. Looking at some trends and seeing where things may end up and how we're looking at projecting out over time. And we can look at it from different dimensions. We can start looking at granular tabular data as far as the project financials and costs against specific portfolios, or look at the costs as we're expending over time on individual projects. We can even look at things like plan versus actual costs at the project level, and even do, like we said, some of that cost prediction about where our costs are going to end up and how we're tracking from a project financial perspective overall. Some cool new stuff that's being added is the idea of trending. So the idea is that we can get some of this type of information and cost summary information and start looking at it on a cost trending basis, meaning what did it look like in quarter one versus how did we look like and how does that data change over quarter two, and are we getting better or worse over time as we're tracking our portfolio going on through. Some very cool stuff from a trending perspective that's available to us as well. And I would say this, given the nature of this information, one key piece of what Michelle talked about earlier on is if we're looking into our project center and where we're executing the projects, if we do have projects, and she used the example of agile projects for the software development pieces of things, if these projects are being managed and executed in another tool, like for example Visual Studio or Jira or Office 365 Planner, which are more agile and Kanban in their nature in the way that they provide a user interface, those tools can be used to execute on the details and have the updates, the hours that are fed in there, etc., feed back into Project Online as if it had just been entered directly into Project Online. We have a number of different webinars that are pre-recorded and coming up that kind of go into the other third-party execution tools on things like Agile and a more of a unified work management message. And we can go on that and you can get more information from our other webinars if you like on that. So hopefully, we've showed you a little bit and maybe given you some ideas on how this can be enhanced to be a more fully integrated system and process with financials and time reporting baked into the process instead of being something that's done off to the side in its own separate silos. So with that, let's wrap up. So what's the value of time and financial integration? Hopefully we showed you today that you can potentially reduce reliance on disconnected spreadsheets or manual processes by having everything incorporated into a fully functional, interrelated system. Hopefully we've shown the opportunities to improve cost management of initiatives and projects by having the visibility and more real-time information so that we can make decisions quicker while we still have the ability to have some effect. Also, just a better ability to measure project financials, budgets, and return on investment to stay on track with key performance metrics. Have project management folks be able to get more real-time information rather than having to wait all the time for the month-end close in the financial system to get things sooner while it's still relevant information for decision making and not just a glimpse at the past. Also be able to provide visibility into centralized organization-wide views of project and portfolio financials, comprehensive portfolio financials, all types of projects, waterfall projects, agile projects, and even non-project work can be incorporated into this. And also be able to just integrate project planning with financial planning, having once again that triangle, having scope, time, and cost all interrelated and be able to look all of those competing dimensions or those competing constraints to understand how they're working for or against one another to help us better meet the project objectives and satisfy our stakeholders' expectations. And just being able to integrate with existing financial applications just brings strength and leveraging the information that's in there and the power of the rich data sets that are being generated on the project management side as well as the financial management side, and marrying those worlds together so that we can both do a better job at our given endeavors. So a little bit about us, Tivitie. We are a Microsoft Gold Certified Partner and Cloud Solution Provider, and what they designate as a P-seller. We actually work at the hip of the Microsoft field sales folks to help bring these to market and help people execute and get the most out of these technologies and solutions. We focus on enterprise business and project management solutions that are built on the Microsoft technology. Anything around managing projects and work. We've been doing this as a team for well over 20 years. And one of our claims to fame is that we've really developed pre-built solution apps that are quick to get up and quick to value for an organization so they can start realizing things quickly without having a large consulting engagement involved and a lot of open-ended requirements to figure out before they can actually start leveraging the solution. And because this is all available in the Microsoft Cloud in a software as a service, SaaS basis, it's a low-risk way to get in, and it takes virtually no upfront investment to get in there and do this. And being built on the Microsoft Cloud technology, we're providing a lot of consistency and stability and infrastructure benefits that weren't usually available to especially the small and mid-sized organizations. And so we really are a one-stop shop. We can provide you all the professional services and consulting around implementing and getting the most out of these technologies and solutions. We also have a number of different education and training options. We have traditional classroom training and remote training, but we also have a Project Online academy and learning management system that allows you to subscribe and do on-demand training as you see fit across all different topics and all different areas of a PPM solution, including the financial management side of things. We support customers as needed through the deployment and afterwards on using these solutions, and we can help with the discipline, help people with standing up PMOs and do business process improvement and really mature their project management processes and portfolio management processes as they go on through. So we can help you with all dimensions of that. Now, we try to give frequent webinars, and the next one we have coming up is on November 3rd called Grow Profitably with Microsoft Dynamics 365 Project Service Automation, a new twist on the project management message from Microsoft that help professional services organizations do better with their unique needs. But as I mentioned about our other webinars, if you want to see any of our upcoming or our whole library of on-demand recorded webinars, you can go to tivitie.com/webinars and either sign up or access the ones that are available if you're curious about some of these other areas we talked about. Special offers. For those of you that are there, we are offering a free project and portfolio management assessment and kind of roadmap session to organizations to meet you where you're at and figure out where you're at, where you'd like to go, and make some recommendations based upon our experience and best practice. We're very anxious to have that discussion with you if it's something that you'd like to pursue. Also, if you want to get hands-on with Project Online or some of the things you saw today, we're happy to arrange for a free trial of this technology and actually support you and nurture you through that so that you have a successful experience. Or if you'd like to have a more private one-on-one demonstration to see how Project Online, Tivitie Project Financial Planner, and Project Connect can work for you, we're happy to schedule that with you as well, or if there's others in your organization that you think would like to see this. So once again, you can go to tivitie.com to learn more. You can also contact me or Michelle directly if you like. We'll be sending you copies of these slide decks, so you'll have this information as we leave. I'm in more of a business development, account management capacity, and Michelle, she really drives the professional services and execution for our clients and has a lot of great knowledge about what we've done for folks as she demonstrated with the use cases she talked about today. So anyway, I'd like to thank you for spending some of your valuable time with us today, and we really appreciate your involvement, and if Tivitie can be of any help moving forward, please let us know. Have a great day.